350 years ago this month, the most devastating fire in the capital's history destroyed most of the City of London and 80% of its churches at the time, including St Paul's Cathedral. Some saw the Great Fire of London as an act of God. Others saw it as a deliberate act of religious terrorism. Most were just looking for someone to blame. As well as exploring the religious responses to the Inferno of 1666, I also discover the magnificent churches designed by Sir Christopher Wren that formed the heart of the new London that rose from the ashes. Church bells used to be the herald of both good news and bad, and in Norwich I get to grips with the ancient art of bell ringing as churches look for new recruits.
That's it.
And over in South Wales, I meet a choir with a difference who were part of a scientific experiment to prove that singing really can do you good. Well, we've no shortage of inspiring music today from churches across Great Britain, including one of the many hymns written by Charles Wesley, who said that this one should be sung in tumult in times of great difficulty and challenge. September 1666, and the Great Fire of London has brought the city to its knees.
All the sky was a fiery aspect, like the top of a burning oven. The noise and crackling and thunder of the impetuous flames, the shrieking of women and children, the hurry of people, the fall of towers, houses and churches was like a hideous storm.
Well, that was the harrowing, very graphic account by Christian John Evelyn in his diaries as he watched the devastation unfolding. And using biblical imagery, he described the scene as a resemblance of Sodom or the last day. So plainly he thought that it felt like the end of the world. It all began here on Pudding Lane, as historian Kate Williams explains.
Well, it seems like the most unassuming city street, but we're pretty much on the site of Thomas Farriner's bakery, except he said, it wasn't me, it was nothing to do with me. And then the fire raged for 4 days, and then it ended in Pie Corner. And because of pudding and pie, those food references, lots of Londoners said it was God's punishment for the sin of gluttony.
Well, we've already heard that people worried that it was apocalyptic. Is that really what they thought?
People were absolutely terrified. You've got these tiny houses, all made of wood, up in flames. Within a matter of hours, this whole area was one firestorm, and simply people couldn't escape. They dashed down to the Thames. That was no good because it was all on fire there. And the peak was when St Paul's itself goes on fire, which everyone has thought was safe because it was made of stone. But there was wood scaffolding and a few embers, and the whole place was flaming. And imagine the seat of Christianity, heaven on earth, the great St Paul's, is up in flames. So it really was terrifying. It was like the fires of hell. And what made people really panic was the date. It was the year 1666, and in the book of Revelations, 666 was the number of the beast.
After the flames were finally quenched, an Act of Parliament ordered that a monument was constructed to, as they put it, preserve the memory of this dreadful visitation.
Thousands of Londoners walk past this every day and probably never wonder why it's here.
Well, this monument marks the position of the very first of the 87 churches that was burned in the Great Fire. So it's a monument to the city that was burned, the churches, and all the sacrifice that the people made.
So, in the aftermath of the fire, what was the general mood?
The belief was that the Catholics had caused it. They were seen as these religious terrorists. And this is what actually was inscribed on the monument. So in 1681, on the side, it said that the fire was caused by a popish frenzy which has not yet been quenched. The inscription wasn't lifted off until 1830 after the Catholic Emancipation Act. So the Catholics were blamed for the Great Fire of London for 150 years.
So, was it possible for anything to quell those rumours and stop the bloodshed?
Charles II put out a statement saying it was an act of God, not a papist plot. And on top of this, he said, we all must atone for our sins. There must be a day of atonement, a day of fasting, and we all must say sorry for all the things we have done.